Okay, I'm going to start this one up and then I'm going to wing it off in left field and just go. Um, the ideal I want to start with here is to kind of tell you what I'm doing and the reason behind it and everything. Have one of those moments, okay? So it's kind of different than my other videos, but the reason I do this is I found out a lot of things that whenever I talk to people that are kind of in the know, seem to get blown away by it and connections that I can make. And I have found a lot of kindred spirits, and I appreciate every one of you. And I've found over a long period of studies that is, man, I've been saying 35 years for almost 10 years now whenever I talk about it. It's funny, you never change the date that you say out your mouth. I've been doing this for about 35 years. And now, being into my 50s good, and really in an understanding of truth, how I, at 5 years old, got into it with Apollo and the ideal that I talk about in a few of my videos. Whenever we were going to space and there was the Apollo missions, and I found out Apollo was a moon god and blah blah blah. And asked my mom if he was like our god at the church and stuff, and that just kind of set me off. And I noticed everybody was acting like this. It didn't take me too long, and it kept happening. And people are like in this fog and stuff, and everything else is going on, but there's this fog. And the fog lifted for me a long time ago, and I even denied it in some ways and everything. Don't want to really go into that aspect too much of it, but what I'm trying to do is just reveal some things that I feel are important to humanity and for people to know, and that not only should just some group of philosophers talking about things know these type of things, but this should all be general public knowledge. And I also show you that back in the ancient times that there were groups of people that didn't want the public to know any of this type of knowledge and sacred symbology and ancient things. And going back to it, right now I'm on a video that I just got through doing description of Jesus, and I mauled this thing from the original ideal. I was going to try to do some David Attenborough-esque version of a reading off this paper, and I couldn't get myself to do it, because the reason I was trying to show a description of Jesus really isn't because of Caucasians and the guys that are mainly my audience. It was because black people have entered into my videos and have come on saying all kinds of things and got all butthurt. And they claim things like Jesus didn't look like everybody says and that he was black and all kinds of stuff. And I seem to be gearing a lot of my videos towards debunks that I didn't even do a year and a half ago, not even 2 years yet, right around there. It's getting up on 2 years. Time keeps flowing, but I got challenged, and a group of them, by a group of them, and a couple of them hung in after that, and I'm sure some of them are probably still watching every one of my videos, including this one. And I've shown enough that there's no issue whatsoever, but new people come on and they don't know that I've done all of this and shown all these things. And so, because in this little video I didn't show one aspect of one lie they try to pull that off. But that's neither here nor there, because this was never intended to be a site not about Negroids. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Hopefully you do. It wasn't supposed to be a hateful or racist site in any way. It was supposed to be a revealing site. And I'm not about to apologize for being part of the race that I found heralded humanity and goes back much earlier than recorded time, and how it all connects in a lot of special ways. If I would have found out that it went back to green people, or India had done it, or it really was black people, or it was something else, I would be very, well, I live in reality. I mean, it doesn't matter. So any thing that I've found has been through deep and intensive studies, and I came out the fog before it even happened, to the point that I never had to fight back through dogma. And not that I was an atheist kid or brought up like that. My parents were somewhat religious, and for a while we were going to church, and my brother became real devout in his church and ended up being a deacon and everything. But it doesn't, you don't have to be going to church, but it's a good thing to do, and it's a get together, and it's a commonality of people and things like that. But white church definitely is not about racism. I've been to church thousands of times. I've never been to one single meeting in where a preacher started going off and saying it was all about a whitey cracker Jesus and black people weren't involved or anything like that. Especially today, it's trying to be an all-encompassing thing, because these black people live with us and everything now. They've stayed in America, and so we've tried and helped them so incredibly much and everything. But it seems like black church is a little bit different of that, and that they perhaps have even tried to change the image of Jesus and twist the story to be about them, and you can see that coming to fruition somewhat, and it doesn't look good. And so some of my videos are geared towards that. And am I gearing it to be like, oh, stab hate, ha ha ha? No, it kind of comes across like that, but really most of the people that are doing this with me are low IQ idiots, and so it basically just slaps some sense back into them, and or they're strutting around and shoot them in the ass with a BB gun effectively. What does it do for anything? At worst, it just shows that we know you're a liar and it's just a joke, and no matter what you do, even if you show yourself to be just delusional, then that's pitiful. And so maybe if you're on my side and you're exposing yourself to be delusional, maybe somebody can help you. Maybe one of these days they'll make a YouTube app, or it'll go around and try to find these places where West African primitive descendants are saying that they was the Egyptians or people in the Bible or something. And because that's not a good, healthy thing. It's a good, healthy thing in a weird way, where we're trying to say, Jesus loved all the children of the world and everything. And John 13, and for God so loved the whole world. But back then they weren't talking about the whole planet Earth, and they were talking about the nations that were around there, and all of these Caucasians that really, when you look into it, go to all the way to India, to China, all across Russia, all the way into Europe, all the way around the Mediterranean with no break whatsoever. All of North Africa was, and into Egypt and things. And even in the definition of Caucasian race, it shows through the Horn of Africa. And so up until more recent times, it was that way. And some of my videos are fighting that moment right there because of black people showing all kinds of things. But also, that was an incredible moment in any of the civilizations that we look at. But I try to go back before that too and find other connections to other things. And whenever I was a kid, I say this over and over again, I don't mean to waste your time being repetitive if you've heard this or not and things. And I don't want to be just somebody that's just keeps putting it off, like you see in my things where I just keep telling the same thing over to the black people that come on and they think they're brand new. But I don't want to do that to you. But sometimes it has to be. I mean, some of these things you have to hammer home. And have you ever noticed that sometimes whenever you're told something, you understand it in a different way later? That someone can say something to you and you go, yeah, they all say da 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 da. And whenever you get a little older and have kids and everything, and all of a sudden you're like, oh snap. And I don't want to give you a video of 20 examples of that. And that's what not this is about. 20 examples of why your parents' little funny things they said come out to be true, or anything like that. Well, we could do one. If I start to run out of crap, I'll be doing things like that. But if you find the 20 things, it'll all be geared towards stuff like this. I try to do ancient cultures. I try to stay away from modern cultures because I don't like what it's turned into from what it could have been. And whenever I look into it, I see why and how and what happened, and I don't like that either. And I don't really have any control over it at all. The only thing I can do is tell you where it all came from. And I don't mean whenever I show the description of Jesus like I did here, this video, and tear it up a little bit, that I keep stopping, you know what I'm saying, and I keep going into this ideal of like where it really came from, and almost just destroy the idea and show you how it can make connections and it works to Titus and everything in Roman Catholic Church. Yeah, don't we all know it? Duh. But it's a totally different look of it. It's a different aspect, and it shows you the reality of it all. Well, does that make it there where the Bible is fake? Well, in some aspects, you could say that yeah, the what you think, what you're led to think it's about, and way it goes, might possibly be wrong. Yeah, it might be wrong then, because I find that short of the ideals that we put upon the Bible by ourselves, the reality of it all is that it's a culmination of all these people. And because they all have separate gods and everything that actually do have connections, incredible connections that I show all the time, that whenever they put it all together and called it one, it was trying to somewhat unify a people. And that even had a little bit of trouble with the Dark Ages and so on. And then you had people that were invading into the old areas that Caucasians had lived in, and we had the Crusades and all kinds of things that came out of that. But that starts to get out of where I like to talk about, because a lot of people, at least in history class and things, if you've taken any extra history classes, you start to understand the timeline and when this happened and the Ottoman Empire and blah, 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 da, 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 da. So you should understand why the people in Egypt look like they do today versus what they did in old days. And so I can show in my videos what they look like in the old days. And nowadays, PC culture is just trying to cover that up, and it seems like Zayawas and those people don't want you to say things like that. That they don't want to show, and that's why he held back King Tut's DNA, because that it kind of shatters the thing, and that would be, not the ideal they're trying to present currently to people. And I try to show you different things, like some of these objects they have in Egypt. Brian Forrester, he's a guy that takes people on these tours. And even though it's been thousands of years since this thing's built, it's still fairly smooth to the touch. And you can see the cutting and the way that it looks. And and they were just knocking on this thing with rocks and ended up with that sharp of edges and everything goes on. You want to try to get me to believe that. Do you really want me to believe that? Okay, well, there's got to be more to it, and I can't show you everything because most of it's hidden, but there are so many marks on these things that show that there's some type of device that's used for cutting that they didn't a long time ago. And I had a ideal that a pyramid was 3/4 built like a mastaba, and then they would use a weighting system down through that walkway up it that runs down as it's counterweighted on the other side, and they would use that, spinning a giant wheel they had made out of bronze or perhaps stone and sharpened up, and then on the edge put something, and it would get this thing spinning, and they would work it through stone like that. But trying to cut, I used to be a carpenter like Jesus. I've framed houses and everything, and even power saws and a good blade, and you're cutting through, and it's going to take the power out of it. And how would you have the power just keep going and make it through the whole thing without having it screw up? And could they have stopped it and then restarted it to finish the cut and not have a blemish or a look on it? And if they did working, could they see that? Could they show that? And I've gone deep into that rabbit hole, and this rabbit hole, and this rabbit hole, and this rabbit hole, just about these aspects. But then, I've studied Sumeria a whole lot too. And I show you aspects of that and how it connects with the Bible and origins of mankind and the great Persian Empire and how it flopped and what happened there. And people come out all the time with these rewriting history videos, and I see some crazy ones. I don't know if y'all ever heard of Charles Koss and somebody else. he says some things that fit and some things that's a little bit, a little wonky and so on. And I try not to be wonky. And I got a video where I'm kind of talking like I am now, but I was drunk at Christmas last year, and I still haven't put it out because I had a solemn moment. I was reading some things some people said to me, in that caring Christmas way and everything, and it kind of hit me. And then I just wanted to be kind of over reassuring to you that I'm not that idiot. I've got enough sense to put things on a scale and see if they have any weight to them. It's not, a pound of feathers weighs as much as a pound of butter. I'm certain of this. And so logic doesn't escape me in being able to figure out these things. And man, I'm not some incredible dude or whatever. But you see these people that I've respected some of these people for what some of their stuff put out, but you see what they turned into and whenever they found out everything, how they've gone off in these left-handed, weird thoughts and things that go a little too far, and it makes you think, are you going too far for drama? Or are you lost? And oddly, you end up finding out that some of that lost crap is actually true, but all the rest of it isn't. I watched a video about him a long time ago when he started getting into the Saturn stories and what he could put with Saturn and how it worked with symbology coming into a modern day. And he was pegging on it pretty hard. But then he gives this other freaky stuff, and it doesn't work with it well. Just like if you go to Son of Saturn, check out his site. It's pretty cool. He has it. It's one of those machine read things, where it's computer voice, but he just gives you knowledge straight out of it. But he also kind of tries to twist it in a different way, or you almost have to go with this whole works and then get everything out of it, rather than pick a few of them and go, that is what reality is. Because he talks about everything being hooked up to Saturn, but a lot of things not that aspect, and everything's about sun gods and all these other things. And back whenever they had multi-pantheons, these situations lasted for a lot of people, and they're all connected. And I try to show you that it's not about a moment in time. The Bible tries to peg a moment in time, and it wants to recreate it and keep it for all of mankind right there. And it's good to find a moment and an epoch in history. And we are making history today. But there's a lot of ancient history that's just mulled over, and the biblical one is so bright now, people looking from this side can't see past the glare. And so I try to cut through that glare. Well, I can just stomp my foot on the Bible and the light goes out. But it's not really true whenever I do that, for it all connects to Samaria, just like Abraham was from Ur, and all these stories connect. And they've been around for so much longer than I was led to believe when I was a kid. And I don't know how old you are, but I'm going to tell you this. People that are 60 and 50 years old were taught that we were Ugg at 4000 BC. And all this weird things that later, due to science and stuff, in the 70s and 80s, we found out wasn't true. And then we were still pitching that idea, and then it started to catch up. And what's taught that I find out in school and things, so if you took that person eventually all off of it and set him on a desert island and went and talked to him and got a good what do you how do you think all this is, what do you think about all this, they would have a certain ideal that's probably not quite reality of what they think of ancient times, regardless of modern stuff, but of ancient times and how it went, that gives you a reassurance about this other thing that's not necessarily, if you focus in on it, it's not quite that. Like some of these stars that you look at night, if you get a badass set of lenses and do it just right, you can expand our eye like a telescope and see that some of those dots are made of millions of dots, and that we're in one of those now, looking out at a bunch of other ones. And there is billions in our visible sky, and we know now that it actually reaches past the point that we can see it. The universe is not something where oh yeah, we can see the last galaxy and there it is. No, it's the last one we can see, and they are slowly escaping out of our view. Farther and farther, and expanding and expanding and so on. And it goes with this Big Bang Theory and blah, 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 blah. Let's not get into that. But that's going a little farther back than I usually like to go, but I try to go there every once in a while just to have a grounding on the moment of going, okay, so we're going to take humanity and we're going to put it in a little spaceship and we're looking down at Earth and we're going to watch this all go through time, and then what we made up after that about all these things and thoughts that we had about all these things. But science is showing us some reality, and here's all this. I try not to gear on that too much rather than to show you the reality of what was going on. Anyhow, and this isn't meant to be some, ooh, I know a bunch of stuff and everything. No, this is more meant for me just to explain to you that I'm trying to show you reality of things that I've found. And during the time I've been trying to do videos, little things keep coming out. And because it goes with something that I may or may not have made a video about, I make a new video. And I attach in the new information. And I don't like the way I do videos, because I show a video and then I stop it and then I start talking, right? And quite often I'm interrupting exactly what that person says. And it'd be great if I could do sentence, stop, and then I talk and everything, but quite often I've got to go right about now. And because I kind of watched it before it came on, I know, like, I'm going to go now, then let him come out of that, because when he says all that stuff after that, I just made that go away. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I feel like, I don't know, it's just I'm winging it. And I like the idea that I'm winging it rather than making you some video where the guy talks like this and he, or, some of my older videos, I even tried to do that spooky moment and I come talk to the microphone and try to explain something to you. And I think that's condescending in a lot of ways too. Or maybe trying to make the hair stand up on your arms as I slowly tell you a ghost story. And that's kick-ass. I love ghost stories. And whenever I find out neat and interesting things, my hair raises on my arms and I get that spidey sense. And then all of a sudden, that spider web in my mind of all these things that connect starts saying things to me, and I'm like, oh wow. Things like this, and just a volcano, what can it do? Well, because the power of a volcano can make years without summer. And I could do a video about micro winters that we've had due to volcanoes that we didn't even know, because like Krakatoa and stuff, nobody's other than the islanders are in that area, and it caused mass effect to the planet, but people were almost unaware. And people talk about Nibiru and it's coming and this, that, and the other, and Nibiru's already came, man. It's not what people are trying to make it into. And the Sitchin story is a wild fantasy that's coming out of what I found to be reality. What we can't pin down to a T, it seems, is whether their gods did come from the heavens just like it says or not. And it seems to be the last edge of that, and people have grabbed onto that, and we were made by aliens and stuff. No, because before that, and I've tried to show this, before that, people, whenever they die, they were already saying they go to heaven and they become a star in the Milky Way, and they're eaten by birds and fly up. And this goes back so ancient, we started having animism attached to it. And this makes bird people. And bird people, that sounds funny. Well, angels. People can't even make the connection that that's just like Horus and that's just like things. But that's bird people, and the vulture symbology that goes with it, because it's the vultures that fly around and take you up to heaven, and they like eating carcasses and things. And that's what used to happen to people before they started doing different ways of preserving their body in a way that, like, we know of Egyptian mummies, and we still do it to this day, and embalm our dead and everything. And I try to show first burials, earliest burials, where in the earliest of times that they're facing the east and on their left side, and there's all this red ochre symbology trying to make a symbolic womb of rebirth and everything. And that ideology goes with this Egyptian thing and coming forth by day, and it's It's just another evolution in depth of it. And it's 3D, and it's depth and depth and depth coming out of it. And it can be overwhelming if you try to just grab onto Egyptian stuff, but if you can see beforehand people in Sumeria, where I tell you a large portion of that ideology and things comes from, and then take it another step back from that and put yourself in a mindset of where these people were and their ideologies coming out of the bird thing I was kind of talking about, but it's still strong all the way through this. You can see where they could develop it out of that and what was going on before. And this idea of 4,000 years ago when we were Ugg, in my own mind, went from 4,000 to 6, no 8, no 10,000 years, and yet kind of, and then there's Cro-Magnons back there at 35, and and just nothing, just some pottery and it goes away, and people arguing about pottery and slight variations on it. Genetics now is illuminating the truth and reality of it all. But of course, it's kind of a weird thing because haplogroups and connectives and so on. But it's a hell of a lot more definitive than pottery. And did they trade with them, or is that them? And it's just like finding dinosaur skeletons. They find a few pieces of a T-Rex and made the whole thing, and everybody goes, "Oh, is it done?" No, they found whole T-Rexes now. The old thing from the 60s where they go, dinosaurs didn't, that's been dead, and that's still around. There are people that talk flat earth crap. And yeah, I've made a couple of joke ones about this lady here has no clue and doesn't even know what a garbage disposal is, trying to talk about saving humanity, but we know the reality of that. And you might see through that quite easy. And problems that we have in the government and stuff. And I don't want to go into that. I don't like it. I'd rather be in the mystical, magical world of old days and Dungeons and Dragons and pulling things out than to even talk about what's going on in a modern day versus what we could have been. For just recently, in my lifetime, we were going to space and watching the Jetsons when I was a kid, and I was led to believe we're going to be Jetsons by the time that we are now and through my lifetime, and some of us will get the chance to go to the moon and go to the space stations and things. And we're going to Mars. What? Yeah, now that we've done that, next step is Mars. And they never took another step. They've done a whole lot to refine that little concept and clutter up space and put all kinds of space satellites so we can watch ourselves and everybody else, weather, but a whole lot of other things. And we're got to end up Star Trek, right? And we already have put Star Trek as our emblem of the way things are going to go. It's amazing. When I was a kid growing up, we had Star Trek directive, and then, well, what had happened long ago? And you could think of those Anunnaki gods as being in a galaxy far, far away long ago, and it being futuristic, though, in Star Wars, and how things went bad in these people, and hey, they had magic too. Well, doesn't that go with that Dungeons and Dragons and all that mystical things, and we like that idea. And they still even fight with swords, but it's swords of light. Oh, that's neat. And there's so much revealed through that, though, and other things, but that's not what this video is about either. And I watch some of these shows now to keep up with modern stuff, and it's starting to wear on me hard with crap and propaganda. And I'd rather talk about magic crap. And I'd rather have the ability for people to have comedy in the world rather than everybody being butthurt and not be able to have any jokes anymore. And congressmen are making fun of other congressmen and everything, and it's gotten to the point they're trying to stagnate government and all kinds of things that probably shouldn't be going on. And it seems to be a directive just to hate Trump, and the Democrats are so freaked out and jealous that they've just literally made a mockery of themselves. And now they're trying to come at it with this next election no, we're just going to throw money at everybody, that'll get them. And most of America understands that's not in any way, shape, or form where we should go, and there's no way we're going to make a leap in any way that drastic in any situation. In fact, it needs to go back to the way we had prosperity. When I was a kid, we were going to space. Let's go back to that moment again. We're going to space and Jetsons and things like that, and we were going to have incredible things. And, you know, I couldn't dream that we would have as cool of video games as we ended up with. And I've always played video games. When they first came out, I was all over it. My brother and I had records on video games and stuff, but it changed. I got married and everything, didn't play as much, and started playing again. And of course, I played a few games, but I got it for my kids. I really got it for my kids, and I thought, well, you know, I'm into games, and I'll start playing some more now. I haven't done it, you know. I had a Sega Genesis as the last console I really had, and well, no, I got an Xbox. I did get an Xbox, but really wasn't into it. Got a Wii for my kids, blah blah blah. Got Xbox, and then of course I got a Dungeons and Dragons type game. We played a few different ones, and then I found Neverwinter that I show you, and because it's an MMO and it keeps going on, I'm all over that. It has its own problems and everything, and I've made some videos about some quests in there, and I've got a couple that I want to put out. But ironically, why I haven't put them out is because right whenever I did, see, I had those saved, and they knocked me to where I couldn't upload and do stuff for like 2-3 weeks, and then all of a sudden on a Thursday I could upload. And so all I could do between then, but I couldn't edit, but what I could do between then was release something that I already had. And so I released the thing from Neverwinter from my guy. I thought about even making a totally separate site and doing it on there so people didn't say anything or any kind of weird crap. But people, oh, I see what you've been doing and everything. And I've got this thing about running all the way. It's a couple of part videos that run all the way up to the next level that we're doing now, and I want to put it out. And it would have been interesting to put it out, and a lot of people would have seen it right after it opened, after it was new, because a lot of people are looking for that, like, how did you find this? Where the hell is that thing at? Blah, blah, blah. And after doing it the first time or two, I had it down. And I watched videos from on PC, which happens earlier. But regardless, through that, it shows a lot of the ideology, and it all connects to this. And that game, ironically, is about ancient folklore and stuff, and Dungeons and Dragons, vampires. You can take it all the way from up to modernish time and older time, and still keep this magic off feel that somehow feels like an old English village / Conan the Barbarian / whatever you want to have with it. And you can connect to ancient times and a time of magic and elves and all this crazy things. But the truth and reality of that I already know kind of keeps it interesting for me. But I've had these trolling people get on, and it's almost like I can do my work and show you real ancient stuff, and then there's these trolls. And the more they yap, the more I'll make a video about it. And they don't seem to even realize that. And some of them are brand new, and I know that. And they think they're brand new, and I show them that. But I don't take crap off idiots. I'm tired of taking crap off idiots. I'm retired, and I don't have to take crap off idiots, and I don't have to live under somebody else's ideal on what I should act like. For I got told whenever I was a kid that we had a free and open society, and that we could talk amongst ourselves, and that that's the power that we have, is speech over the animals. And it's a very important thing. But don't just blather off stupid stuff. Try to learn before you speak weird things. Like, just because his name is Todd and that guy's name is Todd doesn't mean they're related. It would have to be the last name. And come on, let's get past some simple logic. Regardless, man, I don't know. So here's my latest videos. Let's flick to that. I've had almost 1.6 million views off this stuff. And what's odd is I get on my videos and it'll say 200 views, 300 views, 275, 209, 356, 285, 351. So it you know, goes from the mid hundreds to 300s, and I'd like it to go higher, but I'm not trying to be PewDiePie or any kind of crazy thing like that. And people, I realized before I even put this out, people are going to have to be looking for what I'm talking about, probably never find me. Then YouTube denoted me to the point I can't be found, even if you put my name in sometimes, and a topic like Neptunes Cove, Egyptians, and it'll show this titty bar girl and these other things that keep showing up and stuff. But yeah, regardless. But it's funny, it says that since the first of the year that I've had over 800,000 views on the site, and we passed 1 million views and 400,000 viewers and things, and or 4,000 subs, I'm sorry, and did a video about that and everything. And it says that since that point I've had so many views, and when you add up all these numbers, it doesn't make those amount of views. And yeah, I know my old videos are getting seen some too, and I figured all that in and found the ones that have the most views on them. And there are some that have 12,000 views and 43,000 views and 64,000 views, and that's cool as hell. And do I off that get more subs and stuff? No, when you look at my analytics, I get occasionally a couple a month, but I get 3 times that amount just from what new stuff I'm putting out, you know, and catching somebody in that way. And I'm trying to slowly over time, like a spider on a web, show you places and things and places and things. And I was for a while gearing on one place and one thing, and I found that people are kind of it's getting old, and it's getting old for me to go over it. And I know I've said this before, and it even got into a video where I was confused and literally was like, I know I said this before, or did I even just think that or think about saying it before I was making the video? Now stop. Let me make the connections that I'm trying to make, like the spider, and go on. Am I finished with that? What part of the web? No. But I've got to, at least I've got to go on. For if I don't make these connections, this isn't going to work right. It's not working right for me either. It's just becoming monotonous. I could keep going and going and going, and I don't know how people that got into my field and went through it, that specialize in one exact moment, one exact thing, keep on that. It seems to be, they would start, that's the reason I grabbed it, all different cultures, and then I studied symbolism and linguistics and everything, because I found it was neat where this guy had this whole thing about linguistics and stuff, and I was like, wow, I see the connections of that. Okay, let me see how that goes with it and everything. And oh, this is ancient Greek and ancient Hebrew, Phoenician, Proto-Phoenician, and how it comes about, where cuneiform writing is, and in Sumeria it starts, and it ends up in Egypt, and everything in connections. And the first Egyptians have a connection right at the dynastic beginning that show a lot of Sumerian connections that I've made in my videos. But also, there were people there. There's Badarians and Akkad people, and it shows the Neptunes and how they connect to them, that go back to 10,000 years, that are connected in some ways to Catyl Hoyuk, and the people that must have been a part of Göbekli Tepe. And now we've gone back from my kid age of 4,000 years we were Ugg to, man, we were making Stonehenge things with deals all over them and zodiacal crazy mind warp things that there's 50 of them in that thing just at the end of the last ice age. Okay, what happened just before that? And all we can find record of, and it's pow, and it's taken away almost, and shattered moments. And well, it was the ice age. Well, okay, so everybody got closer to Middle Earth during the ice age and everything. Well, not everybody, and there's remnants of everything going back, and Cro-Magnon, Neanderthals, all this thing going on. Okay, but hold on, what happened right before that Göbekli Tepe moment? Well, it looks like some great catastrophe happened in pretty much all over the world, like some kind of dinosaur blow up freak out, but not as bad, but it caused an incredible problem. And there's the Younger Dryas event, and making connections on that. Now I've got a video where is it? I'm about to put out right here about the Greenland crater that they found, and it's got a piece of video in it that's real cool that was from one of the sites,
which coincides with
and how it actually goes back and forth. But like in my videos too, I talk about that, but then I also peg and tell you about other videos that I made. And so now I'm looking across that web and I'm making connections again, and things that I'm about to show you again this year, for it rolls around into Halloween, and how the Day of the Dead used to connect people that weren't even connected, and that they all had this similar time and symbology that goes with meteor showers that go on that might actually have something to do with it. Am I going to try to say that on Halloween 10,800 years ago that this catastrophe happened or whatever and everything? Yeah, well, yeah, probably so. Or in the early part of the year where we go through it in the other meteor shower. But no, it seems like everybody keys on it on that one. But the Taurid one is the one we see at night, and we get to see the meteor showers. When I started learning about that, me and my brother had a telescope and stuff, and to where we had a couple of multiplier lenses to where we could actually see Saturn's rings and things and stuff on it. And we were talking about that, and the comet Kohoutek, if any of you remember that, came by, and we got to actually see it. And then here comes Halley's Comet and all those things, and we were seeing that and watching meteor showers. And we used to skateboard in our backyard, had a ramp and everything. And I remember whenever it came out one time, we quit skating and turned off all the lights and sat out there in the back area and watched meteor showers. And we were counting them like kids counting fireflies. And how that moment came back to me, and how people had done that for a long time. And then people that were keeping up with calendars somehow were smart enough to know, hey, this keeps happening at this one time, and this has something to do with something. But it actually was, well, there's the symbol of Mithra, and there's this and this, and oh wait, hold on, all these people know this. All these people are going off this idea. Like all these people have stories that work around the winter solstice and how the sun reaches its lowest point and bounces back up. And everybody on rebirth, and the sun god worshipping people in rebirth, happens on that date, and Jesus, and how it all goes together. And yes, stomp your foot on the Bible, it's gone. No, it all goes together. It's a continuation and a culmination, but it doesn't hook up on one people. For the 12 tribes they talk about ends up being all these Proto-Indo-European and Caucasians that heralded mankind. And it's twisted into a slightly different story that's trying to talk about the last of the group that pulled into humanity, and then it gives allegories to what all kinds of things they had gone through as a story in some type of typology that happens over and over again about the last ones finally finding humanity. And it correlates into a culmination that reaches up and shows you it hooks to Titus from Jesus to the Roman Catholic Church and continues on. And it continues on to this day. And I know it gets some people butthurt, but just like I don't pull any punches whenever I talk about a few of the different subjects, or when black people try to get on and say things, I don't pull any punches whenever reality is too. For I, set up somewhat to do some more of the biblical findings and stuff, and then contradictions in the Bible and a series about that. Hell, I've got 5 tablets full of notes to make just towards that endeavor, but I don't need to go there. I'm not even on that web right now. I'm trying to show you much earlier points. Occasionally I keep attaching it back and going through that time and catching back and going way back on an old date. And hopefully you that have been with me for a while are seeing this effect and everything. And it seems like I'm somewhat going willy-nilly. And if you watch a spider go real fast, it seems that way. But hopefully I'm weaving a picture that, like in Charlotte's Web,